It's always a moment with StreamYard before you're actually sure that you actually have gone live. But I think we've gone live. So
Nice.
welcome everybody. Usually right at the beginning of a stream, there's almost no one here yet.
Hmm.
And it takes a few minutes for people to join. But for anybody that doesn't know, you probably do know, otherwise you wouldn't be here. This is a continuation of the Friends on Books realm of the Elderlings chats that we started with many months ago before I disappeared. And now that I'm back, I wanted to get on this one as soon as possible. The plan was Derry, Evie, and Madison. Madison has a whole family and even borrowed
An
family who
extended
are all
family.
who are all sick all at once, and she's taking
And
care
in
of them.
her
So
house.
yeah, all of them in her house. So she is unable to join us, unfortunately. Everybody synchronized heart hands. 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
Love you, Madison.
Yep, we miss
Wish you were
you.
here.
Absolutely. And I'm sure she would have brought lots to the conversation.
My video seems to have gone off. The plan for me is I've been doing a read along and reread for me of the entire Realm of the Elderling series. And after each chunk, which is trilogy, tetralogy, trilogy, I want to do a chat like this with the same people because you're awesome people and there isn't anybody I would rather talk to about Robin Hobb.
Yay.
Yay.
It's always so much fun.
Yeah, so just to start with, Thornall von Tridaka is here.
And
Hasn't
it's
read Liveship.
wonderful. But that's all right. Thornall's going to get
Yeah,
there. And
yeah,
I'm certain is going to enjoy it. And
yeah.
yes.
I warned them already. There will be spoilers at some point here, but they said don't worry, Hobbs deep enough that it doesn't really matter, which I
That's
tend to agree
kind of
with.
a great point, to be fair.
Yeah, Atalea's here. I don't know who else is here. It says there's 6 people so far and more
Yay.
coming, I assume. Hey, Rogue's
Yeah.
here. Good to see you,
Fantastic.
Rogue. Yeah. So, just quickly, I'm assuming I always assume that anybody that watches my channel knows all of the channels I love, but it's not necessarily the case. So, would you two like to introduce yourselves and your
Sure.
channels?
Absolutely. I am Derry. I have a channel called Derry's Read It Before because I kind of specialize in rereading things and finding just more in books than I saw the first time and then talking about them. At the moment, that's pretty much just a lot of Hob content and Discworld, which are two of many of my favourites. There's a lot of the Song of Ice and Fire content, so I mostly leave that to other people. But but I do know almost as much about that series as I do about this one. But that's who I am, and that's where you can find me.
I'm a dairy wannabe, self-proclaimed,
Aren't we all?
committed,
Oh, whatever.
and my channel She Was Only Evie. I feel like I said this, Dairy. You've heard this before,
Yep.
just yesterday.
Yep.
The only regular content I do is every 6 months I do a tier ranking video of the past 6 months of what I've read. So, if anything, I am keeping tier ranking videos alive, barely.
Your tier ranking
Fighting the
videos
good fight.
must somehow have been awesome because you are well known and well loved on
Very
BookTube.
much so.
I am everywhere, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
I gift everyone.
If Evie loves a book, she will send it to you.
That's true. That's true. I keep running into people. I'm like, "Oh, did you read Spear Cuts Through Water because I recommended it?" And they're like, "No, Evie sent it to me." I was like, "Oh yeah, Evie sent it to me too." I mean, that's why I recommended it. So, yeah.
I mean, I know this is a Hob chat and a Liveship Traders chat, but I'll just say I'm pretty sure I have bought more copies of the Spear Cuts Through Water to the point that literally they are out of stock. They don't sell them anymore. They have no more copies of the hardback versions.
Nicely done. I will say, though, for people who want to get to know Evie better, join the Discord.
It doesn't
Grimoire
matter which Discord, just
No,
like
pretty
any
much.
Discord.
Just join Discord. You'll find Evie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, Grimoire Discord that Matt's a huge part of. Evie can be very active in, and she's a lovely person to talk to on Discord.
Absolutely.
That's right. You can ignore it, Evie. You don't have to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What are you saying? I have you on mute.
You can just be there. You look pretty. You don't have to react to me saying that you're awesome, because it makes you uncomfortable, which I relate to. But anyway.
So for
discussion.
everybody, I mean, I'm obviously Matt on Books. I talk about fantasy mostly, science fiction sometimes, and comics occasionally. As I always say, I wanted to warn everybody. I already put it in the chat. We have all read the trilogy, and a lot more than that, but specifically this trilogy, the Liveship Traders. We've all read it. We're going to be discussing it freely after a certain point, probably just at the very beginning, like now, starting now, will be a little non-spoilery. But we will probably get to spoilers pretty quickly. We will warn you when we really go full spoiler, and you can piss off if you want to. If you don't want to ruin anything. Later. Yeah, exactly. But you can definitely come back later. That's part of one of the things I wanted with this is next time I reread the whole series, I can come back and look at these videos, and hopefully other people will too. So maybe just firstly, where is everybody at? So I have read the whole Realm of the Elderlings except the last trilogy. I've never read that, but the rest of it, I think I've read some of it 3 times, some of it twice. I just finished Fool's Errand yesterday, which is I think a 3rd read or 4th read for me. And am going through 20 Man at the moment with little breaks in between for other things. Derry has read Realm of the Elderlings a million bazillion times.
Close.
I know that.
Yes.
Evie.
You're very close.
So I finished Realm of the Elderlings at the middle of January. And then I gave myself a little bit of a break because apparently the grieving period of having it all over is real. And I reread Farseer earlier this year. And then I just skipped right to Fitz and the Fool, rereading Fitz and the Fool, along with Anitha and Pete.
Okay.
And in January, I never knew you had a cat. Sorry, this is more important.
It's a brand new cat. Guess what the name is?
Fitz.
Yeah, of course. Fitz the cat. Fitz is a Maine Coon. Year and a half.
To have their introduction on this live stream.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually just recorded today and edited the October wrap up for my channel, where I introduced Fitz a little more formally. But Fitz is actually a she.
That's right.
But I don't think she understands enough human to know that she has a male name. So totally fine.
My cat is named George, and she's a female. So
okay,
it's fine.
Exactly.
Anyways, sorry, I get distracted by animals.
Obviously.
I reread Farseer. I reread skipped right to the end to Fitz and the Fool because I thought, you know what, I'll reread from the beginning, and then I realized, you know what? Ever since I finished Fitz and the Fool, I just want to reread Fitz and the Fool, and so. Because I was in the middle of Farseer, I was like, I gotta finish it out. I can't just not finish it. Yeah. And then I read Fitz and the Fool, and starting in January, I will be reading Liveship Traders with for the first time. So it's really convenient timing in that it's been almost 2 years. I would say a year and a half since I read Liveship, so I might be a little rusty, and you guys will have to correct me on some stuff. But I am planning on rereading it starting in January with Kev and others.
Nice. So. And I'm always rereading. So it's just a matter of where am I at the moment. So
and I
just finished Fool's Assassin again, so I'll be back at the beginning shortly.
I had a really
not Fool's
confused and turbulent reading of Realm of the Elderlings because I read Farseer when it was the only thing out.
Yep.
Right. And then I totally forgot about Robin Hobb forever. And then many years later, I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. I'll read it again. I read it again, and then I realized there was more.
Yeah.
So I read Liveship, and then I read, I think, 20 Men, but there was no more.
Yeah.
And then eventually, again, many years later, there was more, and I went back to the beginning and read it all up to then. And somehow I have not gotten to Fitz and the Fool yet. So that will be sometime next year.
Oh, I'm so ready for that to happen.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, it's sort of it's a simultaneous advantage and disadvantage that I have a really crap memory because I'm almost reading 20 Man for the first time now, even though I've read it 3 times already, because I just don't remember that much. Oh yeah, and I also read Willful
Awesome.
Princess.
I
and the
was
Five
going to
Orphans.
ask if you did.
Yeah. No, I read that. I mean, it took a day. It's tiny. So I read that and then started on 20 Men. So
Nice.
where do we want to start? Do we just want to go into gushing about the Malta arc or about how awesome Paragon is? Or no, we're not.
So-
we're not doing spoilers to start with.
Yeah.
I was
We're
going to say,
gonna go
So-
vague to begin with.
yeah.
One vague question. We've all read most of the 16 books. Where would you say you would place this if you were ranking the different series chunks?
So this is, what did I say before? I think it's my second favorite.
It's difficult.
So it's between 2 and 3, second and third on the sub-series, only because I love Farseer so much, and I love Fitz so much. On its own, Liveship is an amazing trilogy from start to finish.
Yeah.
I would argue the perfect trilogy, and you can just read that on its own. If that's the only Robin Hobb you ever read, you can read it, and it's so satisfactory, and it's perfect, and it's impeccable, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful. But I like Fitz and the Fool. That's my favorite sub-series of the bunch. And then, like, I normally would say it's really between Farseer and Liveship. Like, they're neck and neck.
Right.
It depends upon my mood, and if you ask me tomorrow, my answer might be different. And I'm not even giving you an answer right now, so I can't.
It's also
waffling now, Evie.
it's also kind of weird with Realm of the Elderlings because you can read Liveship totally by itself, like you
Yes.
said. You could read Rainwilds pretty much by itself. Not
Yeah.
completely, but it's more connected, but it sort of stands on its own.
Yeah.
A bit. But you can't read any of the other ones by themselves.
No.
I mean, you could read Farseer by itself, but if you do, you're in love with Fitz, so you want more Fitz.
You want-
so you're going
that's
to read
right.
the rest, you know. So yeah, the Farseer 20 Men and Fitz and the Fool are kind of like one thing.
That's right.
And
And,
then
you
the other
can't read
two-
20 Men in isolation, and you can't read Fitz
No.
and the Fool in isolation. They all require each other. And 20 Men requires live ships, and
Yeah.
Fitz and the Fool requires everything before it for
Yeah.
you to get full payoff.
To get everything, yeah.
And that
Yeah,
so
they're lightly
it's hard to rank
connected.
them.
Yeah.
Because you're not really saying you love Fitz and the Fool. If you're ranking that first, you're also saying I love that because it's got 13 books before it that add to its weight. So I
Yeah.
have a top 3 that I refuse to separate, and they are 20 Men, Fitz and the Fool, and live ships.
Right.
All for different reasons. But Evie's
Yeah.
completely right. As a trilogy, Live Ships, I've always said, is the tightest trilogy within
Yeah.
the series. It's
Yeah,
the most
just as far as
satisfying in
Yeah,
terms of
and
its
just-
own story.
just as far as writing, pacing, the characters, everything.
Yeah.
It's really. I would also say. I mean, I haven't read the last trilogy yet, but from what I have read, I would also say it's so damn good. But yeah, the goodness, the level of goodness with the Fitz and Fool books is kind of cumulative.
Yeah.
You know, they continually get better because of the ones before them. So
And they increase the enjoyment that you had of the ones that came before, because you've got greater understanding of the characters and what happened before.
But
So,
if someone reads or tries to read Farseer and they don't like it very much, I will twist their arm really hard to start live ships. You know,
I'm a little more stubborn. I'm like, please try with Farseer, because if you love live ships, and you are going to have to come back and read Farseer.
You're going to want to read
then
it
be able
anyway,
to go forward.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just please read Farseer and accept that, okay, you don't get everything in it yet, and it's not your favorite. It will
And also, mainly, Fitz is a dum-dum. We know.
Yeah, just accept that he makes
Fitz
really
is
bad
the
decisions.
dumbest. It's
But
to
he's my
me,
dumbest, and he's
He's
our
a sharp tool.
Yeah.
He's a sharp tool who doesn't know how to drive himself.
Yeah.
When someone else is giving him guidance, he's
if
brilliant.
someone points him at something, he can break it. But
Absolutely.
But yeah,
he's not good at
he's not a great thinker.
Tasks.
No.
But yeah.
Pretty much all of the Fitz books are a series of decisions being put in front of Fitz and him picking the worst one.
Yeah, the one that's going to hurt him the most.
The whole story. Everything that's going to make everything as bad as possible for him, he will choose it.
Yeah.
Which makes it hard to read, and why coming into live ships can be such a relief for people who don't connect to Fitz, because it does change from that very narrow
perspective,
unreliable narrator into a multi-POV story where things are being backed up by other POVs or rendered different in context by other POVs. So you're getting a clearer idea of what's actually happening in live ships. You're getting what feels like a more accurate story.
I'm going to go back to the comment right at the beginning. Actually, even before we started, Thornall wrote this, that they haven't read Live Ships yet, but they like all of us, so they wanted to tag along. Thornall, what you should take out of what we're saying is read Farseer first.
Yeah.
Right? And if you really, really seriously really given Farseer
if you're like, I'm never reading Hob anymore,
and you don't like it, then go to Live Ships, because Live Ships is completely different. The writing quality is the only thing I would say in a way that's similar. It's in the same world, but it's multi-POV. It's not first person. It's multi-POV, jumping from head to head, so you get their thoughts and things. It's not unreliable like Fitz definitely is. And it's in a totally different place. There's totally different things going on, and there almost
appears to be no connection
as far as characters and stuff.
I will say appears to be, because
there are some hidden connections.
There are a lot of connections,
yeah.
But if you're just in Live Ships, you don't need to have that context yet. So
exactly,
it's great.
Exactly. So yeah, I definitely read Live Ships, but definitely try and read Farseer first. Picking the worst decision every turn sounds like Fitz's story is mildly inspired by the. Yeah, see, it
can be cathartic. I can tell you that much.
I think that's actually one of the reasons. I mean, Fitz isn't in Live Ships, and we're doing a Live Ships chat, but I think that's one of the main reasons that Fitz is so well loved. Is he's not a superhero.
He's really not.
You know, he's like the opposite of a superhero. He's a fuck up. And he's amazing at some things. He's not very good at the thinking part and the making good decisions part. And he's surrounded by great people who he pushes away
comes
constantly.
Across as someone you don't want to be around, because he's earnest. He's trying really hard to do the right thing.
He's not evil or badly motivated in any way. He's just always making the wrong decisions. And that feels like me.
Yeah.
You know, I think it feels like a lot of us, and the way we live our lives.
With hindsight, I should have done that differently.
Yeah, exactly.
He feels human.
Yeah, exactly. He's
almost like he's awesomely written.
It's also funny because he is kind of. There's a little bit in Farseer at the beginning. There's a little bit where I was thinking, oh, he's kind of a chosen one. And he kind of is, you know, because he doesn't get
any of the benefits
magics.
Of being a chosen one.
No, No, I mean
None at all.
he's part of the royal family. He's got these two magics coming together. He's got all this stuff going
seriously
for him.
overpowered.
But
And
but yeah,
no,
he's
it
just a
doesn't
little
go
bit
well.
broken. Anyway, so that's
Try
where
and
we
steer us into life ships.
where we kind of place live ships in the whole 16-book series. Somebody, let me just search for it. No, it was this. Sarah said, the standout is that Kenneth is the best written villain ever.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I have no argument at all with that statement. I haven't ever encountered a more nuanced villain that becomes more so if you do read on in the series, which makes how good he is in the live ships somehow more astonishing.
Yeah.
So,
Andrew, you won't get blocked.
but you might get shouted at.
No, so he has correct opinions about live ship.
This
it's
is true.
everything else after Tawny Man that he's wrong about. We'll
This
block
is true,
it
and
anyway.
we can have that argument later.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're not up to the things that we will block you for yet, Andrew. So feel free to share your correct opinions about live ships.
Yeah. And going back to what we were saying about Kenneth, you and I were talking before the stream, Matt, that these conversations do become very dominated by Kenneth and Malta, because of how excellently they're written in terms of how they change, how they interact with people, and how your opinion of them is influenced by the other characters and all of that. And I'm in a lot of these discussions, people tend to then miss out on a deeper conversation about some of the other characters. And I, for one, I love Paragon. I love Ophelia. Ophelia's a live ship you only see briefly. But
she's
adore
awesome.
her.
Ophelia
She's
is super cool.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
She's like that shameless granny who's just like,
Yeah.
well, you should hear the stories about in my day. And I love her. She's glorious.
Yeah.
You know, there's the extended family from Althea's point of view. She has a sister, she has her mother, and their stories are really compelling. You've got the backstory around the friend David, who's in the first couple of books. There's so much more than just Kenneth and Malta, that even taking those two core characters out of a discussion, even briefly, still gives you this enormous pile of things to discuss.
There's more than enough still there. Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, it's been 22 minutes, so it's probably about time for me to mention Malazan. Malazan.
To be fair, you were talking about Malazan before we even went live, so.
Yeah, but we don't have to share that with the public. It's
the point was valid.
Well, and this is a slightly different point, but another way in which they're kind of similar. I always got kind of angry at Steven Erikson because he would introduce a villain and he would convince you how villainous they are, and you would see the horrible things that they do, and then he would teach you to sympathize with them.
Yeah.
And I would always be like, dude, if you lived in Berlin, I'd be knocking on your door right now. I'm angry at you. I want to just hate my villains. And well, yeah, no, I wasn't actually thinking about Animander. Whoops, sorry. Thornall. I was thinking of some other people, but yeah. And she does that so well. There is nobody in a book that I've ever wanted to slap more than Malta at the beginning, right? When she's introduced. And she's plotting to get her dresses, and she's totally on the side of her father, who is actually the worst villain in the books. And she's doing all this stuff, and I'm just like, someone needs to set you straight, girl. Damn. And then by the end, you're like, go, Malta.
Absolutely.
Like yes! she becomes a hero by the third book, you know?
Yeah, you're really, really rooting for her to succeed by the end of it, where you're like, yes, she knows what she's doing. She's got the right idea. And yeah, you do become really invested in her success.
Yeah, absolutely. Who is your favorite character, Evie, in the Liveship Traders?
Paragon. Well, of Liveship, Paragon.
Yeah, specifically Liveship, yeah. Paragon. Yeah,
Me too.
I would say so too.
Like I am so excited. Like I know my name is the Mad Ship on here, but Mad Ship is the one that I'm most excited to reread because I don't think I appreciated it
Yeah.
as much as I did when as I was reading as I do upon reflection.
Yeah.
And it's just the Mad Ship is Paragon's book.
Yeah.
It like
Oh,
in
yes.
name and in just in content. Oh god, I love Paragon so much.
So maybe
He's fantastic.
maybe because I keep feeling like maybe we're holding ourselves back whenever we mention certain things. I know I am.
Yeah.
Fuck it. From here on,
Spoilers.
there will be spoilers.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in the chat and
So
you're
no
worried
coming
about
first.
spoilers, you
You're
haven't
here
read
on
it.
your own.
There will be spoilers from now on. We are going to talk freely about all 3 books in Liveship Traders.
And potentially talking about stuff in Farseer
And Farseer. Yeah,
only,
up to the end of
nothing in
Liveship.
Tawny Man, nothing in Rainworld, nothing in
Exactly.
the book.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
No. I mean, I
So-
just adore Paragon. I adore him. And his story, when you've read the trilogy, becomes so much more tragic and so much more relatable. And I just, not only have you got this ship who has had this incredibly abused life, and it seems really strange to say that because he's a ship, but this is Robin Hobb, whose human characters are among the best in anything written.
Yep.
And of all the human characters who are astonishingly well written, a ship is my favorite character. And he's been abused. He's had some truly shocking things happen on his decks. And then as the story progresses and you find out that he was made from 2 different lots of wizard wood, and you're like, oh, okay, that's going to be a problem because, as we've learned, it's 2 entities that have made him up. So we've got a split personality happening already.
Yeah.
So this ship is already fighting with itself. Then has all these atrocities happen to it. And again, we learn over the course of the trilogy that blood is memory. So this ship, who has been captured by pirates and been the platform for battle, has had so many deaths on board and has had so much blood spilt on board that he's absorbed all of those memories and all of those lives, and lives of raiders, of pirates, of not nice people.
No.
He has those lives in him. So to encompass all of that, I have my own theory that is of the 2 wizardwood logs that made him up. I think, depending which piece of the ship gets that blood, those memories only going to one half of Paragon's entity.
Oh, that never
So
really
now we're
occurred to
getting
me.
2 entities that are actually diverging even further.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised Paragon is broken. So to have come to a place where Paragon goes, do you know what? I'm just going to create a me that I want to be out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you bloody legend. I love him. I just love him so much.
Wasn't it also described that like his frame was from one of the wizardwood logs and his decking and like planks and whatever were from another one?
They never specified which
I
parts
thought there was sort of a clear, right?
Which cocoon,
Right.
but only that he was made of 2 different. They're not really. Well, I suppose they kind of are cocoons, but 2 different ones, and that they fight within him for dominance, keeping him distracted almost from the world around him, and I just felt so much for him. And you're still finding new things out about him as the trilogy goes on, and he just becomes more and more tragic. I adore him.
I was saying it before we went live. It never occurred to me before, even though I've read these books and I've read Malazan multiple times. But just before we went live, or this afternoon, I was thinking about it. I was like, actually, you know what? Paragon reminds me of Felison. For those of you that have read Malazan, like Felison is this woman who is super annoying, right? But she's been horribly traumatized. She's had some really, really, really horrible experiences and is basically aggressive and offensive to anyone that gets anywhere near her all the time. There is no nice, there is no soft, basically ever, because she's been so traumatized.
Yeah.
And Tori, who was here earlier, I think she left because she hasn't read the books. Bye, Tori. Yeah. She did a great video about Fellowson, which really makes you think, because a lot of people just hate Fellowson. That doesn't go any further. The second time I was reading it, I didn't like her anymore, but I sympathized a lot more. I had a lot more compassion for her because of what she had been through, and understood why she was doing what she was doing. And it's exactly the same with Paragon. You know, you want to smack him, like, especially
sometimes you just like,
when he's
really,
dude,
they're trying to help you.
You're making everything as bad as you possibly could for yourself.
Yeah. You could choose to do this the other way.
Yeah. But he's not only traumatized, but he's basically a boy. He's never grown up.
Because and again, that's that blood. One of his family was a child. So one of these memories that he prioritizes, just because of the nature of life ships, is a child. So part of his dominant personalities is one of a child, with that mindset, with that simplicity and that need for reassurance constantly and to feel safe.
And am I remembering it correctly? He never got the last death that he should have got.
Oh no, he did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
It's quite a complicated story about the heir and then the brother and then the child and then anyway, it's a big thing.
Yeah. You wanted to say something, Evie, or you look like it.
Yeah, so I would challenge both of you and say that Paragon, I guess similar to Fitz, for me, is that I see myself so much in Paragon without going into intimate details. And so I would argue that Paragon himself as a character is not tragic. Nothing about him is tragic. It's everyone around him. The way he's treated, the way he is, the lack of support that he has, the lack of understanding that others have for him, that's the tragedy. And not to kind of like say, oh, Derry, how dare you?
But I'm mistaken, because you are right. You are exactly right.
So
and I need to rephrase it to say his story.
Yeah. So I get really, defensive probably isn't the right word, but
protective.
When people say that Paragon is causing a lot of his own problems, that's not, I don't want to use the word victim blaming or whatever, but it again, he doesn't have the structure around him to support him, and no one listens to him. No one cares about him. Everyone just wants him to do.
This is where I am going to disagree, because when I say he's making things difficult for himself, this is when he has got a support structure around him. And I get that he spent his whole life without that, and I know it forms patterns in behavior where you don't trust that these people are right.
He's not able to trust.
To see that these people are trying to help you, and you're not letting them. And
the bit of the story that I find,
the tragedy of the story.
Yeah, the bit of the story that I find so tragic, I guess it's in the Mad Ship more than anywhere else, is when Amber is coming in, and Amber is, you can see, even if you haven't figured out who Amber is, you can just see that she is absolutely just being generous, being kind, trying to help him. She doesn't have an ulterior motive. She's not using him for anything. She really just wants to make things better for him. And
listens to him when he says, I don't want that. I would rather be dead. So she works with him and says, I don't want to help you do that, but I will allow the situation. I mean, she basically surrounds him with oil so that shit really hits the fan. Okay, we can.
They're not going to take you,
and you can do that. Yeah. I'm not going to let that happen to you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she's doing everything she can for him,
It's
and he's still
when he
physically
states a
threatening
wish,
her
she does
and
her best to.
yelling her,
Yeah.
and, that kind of
Mm.
thing. I mean, I agree. I in a way, I agree with both of you. I agree with you, Evie, because he's been so traumatized for so long and so alone for so long, so
yeah.
ignored and, neglected for so long. He's not capable
No.
of recognizing someone who is actually genuinely trying to help him and trusting that they're actually going to do it. He just doesn't have that in him at that point.
And
He's not
again, this
capable.
the story is so tragic, is when he's almost at that point where you're like, he's starting to trust it. He's starting to let these people into him. And they bring the woman who is part of his family, the woman who owns him, the Ludlip woman to him. And she basically says, I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. And that just completely cuts everything out
Breaks
from
him
under
again.
the progress that Paragon had made.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken for him in that scene. I really was. Because in that moment, he is the child that's within him, being completely abandoned by the one person who is supposed to love him the most.
Yeah.
Not even just abandoned, rejected.
Yeah.
Actively rejected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just that she goes away, but she very clearly says she wants nothing to do with him and that he has ruined her family and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
And
this is
my heart.
This is interesting. There's parallel between Fitz and Paragon.
Yeah.
How ironic that Paragon gets Fitz's face. Like, everybody in the chat, put up your hand if you understood who Amber is. Like, I've actually heard from people who read the whole trilogy and didn't get who Amber is.
I didn't.
Wow. Okay. Maybe I'm just really a suspicious person. I think the first time I read it, when we got to Amber's shop.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
And she had all of the wooden beads that are carved in the amazing. And I was like, that sounds a lot like someone we know.
Yeah.
And it's a strange coincidence that there's two of these people.
Yeah. And then once you think it, all of the text supports it, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's definitely the thing.
Everything fits. And then, I mean, like when she recarves Paragon and gives him an
nothing
axe
wrong with
and
his nose,
a face and his nose, and like all of that, I'm like, it kind of has to be.
I mean, I've bumped into quite a lot of people who haven't clicked during
I know,
and
I also
most of the time it's because they've come to a decision about who Amber is that isn't who Amber is. And like everybody, once you have an idea in your head, you're looking for the things that support your theory.
Yeah.
And you're not finding them, but it means that you're not noticing the things that are telling you who Amber is. And
I also didn't realize that Paragon's face that Amber recarved was Fitz's face.
Again, if you haven't already had the inkling, you're not going to pick it up.
I was thinking about it when I reread. I mean, of course, obviously, I got it the first time I read, and when I reread it, I knew. But when I was reading the bit about her recarving, I thought, okay, if you haven't understood who Amber is, what do you think is going on there? No, I'm serious. I'm curious. Evie, what did you think? Did you just think it was a description of some unknown person that was important to Amber? Or because that whole passage is so meaningful and heartbreaking if you know, like, this is Amber and she's carving Fitz, right, into a ship that has Fitz syndrome.
So much hurt.
Yeah.
So I had in the brief time that I didn't know that Amber was this other person.
I love that we're doing full spoilers and still protecting this one.
Yeah.
Amber is the fool.
Oh, well, okay. Again, if we're just doing like through Liveship, I didn't want to spoil it for anyone.
But it's something I think that is hinted pretty clearly.
And well, I'm always surprised.
In Liveship.
Listen, going back to Farseer, there's a reason I love Fitz, because he's dense as F. And
I actually listed quite a few reasons. Someone I think has made it to Tawnyman, had the absolute definitive reveal that that's who Amber was, and is now going, did other people think that Amber was and everyone's going, yeah. And they're like, where was it? And I'm like, well, off the top of my head, they work with wood. They're able to find things in the wood that aren't visible from the outside. They wear gloves all the time. Althea comments about how androgynous she appears, and
I hope
that
you're
she helps
joking, DK
Althea
Moon.
become.
Oh, no,
She helps Althea behave like a man when Althea wants to go onto another ship as a man. She's constantly making statements that suggest that she's prescient. She carves this face that, well, it's Fitz. And if you haven't figured out it's Fitz, there's a battle axe and you still haven't figured out it's Fitz. And then the rooster crown at the end, that was such a significant moment during Assassin's Quest when the fool has the vision in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I'm like, surely that's the giveaway clue. And so it's just, and those were just off the top of my head. I thought about looking up some more this morning, but I lost time.
Well, I mean, to kind of echo what Matt has already said, I have shit memory. So
there is a specific quote.
I have a
called a fool
weird memory.
Before.
I have a weird memory. There are certain things.
Some things I will hyper focus on and remember forever.
Yeah.
But other things
from the first time I read, like, I don't know, 30 years ago, when I first read the Farseer trilogy, I exactly remember the Rooster Crown scene.
Yeah.
Where like they have
pivotal.
There's the vision, and I totally remember that. I certainly would have gotten it from that memory. I would have gotten it later in the books, but I was just like I said, I'm maybe just too suspicious. Like they introduce somebody who's kind of weird and androgynous, and their coloring is really weird, but it's not white, but it's really weird.
And nobody knows their history, and
mystery person turns up out of nowhere, and I mean, it was pretty misleading to start with, but eventually I was like, this just sounds too much like the Fool to not be the Fool. Maybe it's related.
And there's a wonderful moment where when they do set sail on Paragon after they've refitted Paragon, and Malta comes on board, and Paragon has this vision, we'll call it. He has this magic moment where he's swept up in the magic of it all, and he's dreaming of sort of flying across the waves, and Malta gets caught up in that and can't get herself out, very much as Fitz gets caught in the skill current, and Amber is the one who brings her back. Nobody knows how, but later you have Malta's mother say, you have a mark on the back of your neck, and it's the skill from Fool's thumb. As the two fingerprints has woken her up. It's by forging a skill connection with her and bringing her back from the magic. So she has this gold mark of silver on the back of her neck. And Rain comments on it because she likes it. She likes it when he touches there, because it's a very emotional connection for her.
Yeah,
so,
I remember
so
that.
the clues are there. The clues are there, like with all of Realm of the Elderlings. Nothing is ever hidden from you in Realm of the Elderlings. Everything is on page the whole time. You just don't know what it means until later when you go, oh my God.
In
that
Farseer,
was there the whole time.
In Farseer, I did not realize that the woman in the market calling the weird word out was Fitz's mother until you guys told me in our discussion. Like I was like,
it's there.
What?
And
I didn't get that at all.
See, for me, that broke my heart the first time.
It, but it was spoiled for me in a Farseer chat. Apparently, they were talking about Realm of the Elderlings as a whole in context,
See, I knew it the
they're
moment
talking about
I read
Farseer in context of the whole.
I knew it the moment I read it, because I was my mother remarried when I was a baby, and I'd never met my real father. And when I discovered this older, I was a teenager, high drama. And I was like, I could walk past my father on the street and I would never even know him. But that, at the core of it, was how I felt. So when Fitz walks past a stranger on the street and this stranger is heart-rendingly calling for him, I'm like, oh my God, that's his mum.
I think I was so wrapped up in what was going on around that moment.
Yeah.
Like that, is that the visit to the market where he first connects with Night Eyes, and it's kind of that moment. Yeah, exactly. And I was just so wrapped up in what was going on with him. And then there's this woman yelling a word I've never heard before. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let's get on with the other stuff. You know, I
Yes.
just
So
totally missed it.
to answer your question about who I thought Amber was or was going to be, I just was like, oh, we'll probably get more of her in the next series, the next sub-series. Like, we'll learn more.
Which, to be fair, you do.
We will. Just with a different
I have
name
heard
and
some
gender.
marvelous theories, though.
Yeah.
One of the wonderful theories I've heard is that Amber is some kind of hybrid between the ships and Elderlings because of her wooden colouring. And I was like, oh, I like that.
That's a
and
cool
her
idea.
connection to the ships. I was like, that's kind of fascinating. And I am wondering if that might have been where Robin Hobb intended to go with that character. Because I've heard Robin Hobb speak about it, and it wasn't until Amber was on page that she knew who Amber was. Because at that point, this was not a trilogy that was going to be a continuation of Fitz's story. This was going to be a separate trilogy, completely different. We're going to go off on another tangent. Amber shows up on page, and only after creating Amber and putting her on page did Robin Hobb go, why is the Fool here? And it's drawn those two worlds together, and it has become this much greater story over the years. So maybe that's who Amber may have become. I don't know.
That was also sort of the original story with the Fool, wasn't it? I remember. I think
Fool
you
just
told me
showed up.
that the Fool was just meant to be kind of a bit part.
Yeah,
like
he was supposed to say Fitz
just
was Fitz,
Trude's-
and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. And then
just
it was
wouldn't
like,
go away.
actually a character with a lot to say.
There's something here actually. So
Paragon. I mean, to me, I would say Paragon and Kenneth are the most interesting characters in the trilogy. And we find out relatively late that they're extremely connected.
Yeah. So that one for me came as a surprise. That one I didn't connect until the reveal. Despite the fact
my
it's
reread,
on page
that one still
every time.
surprised me.
Yeah, the clues are
forgotten.
there. The whole
Yeah.
time he's trusting in the luck in his name. Hello, he's a Ludluck. And you're like, how did I not
that's
see
true.
that?
That's
It
true.
was on page from the very
I never
beginning.
even noticed
hidden.
that particular hint.
And that he was you know that there's the connection to Egrot the pirate. You know Paragon is connected to Egrot the pirate, and somehow I still never made the connection until it was given to me point blank. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense now. Because
I think I got it
how to interact with live ships.
I think
We
I got
see
it the
with
first
impatience.
time they described Kenneth undressed, and he's got the star tattooed on his hip, I think. And then I was like, I've seen that
It's the
star
one
before.
tattoo he doesn't burn off.
Yeah. And I mean Paragon's got that cut into his chest by Kenneth, turns out. But oh my God. Yeah. I had an extremely hard time sleeping while I was reading Ship of Destiny.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't stop. There were so many nights when I was working on it and I was like,
I have to put it down.
I have to go to bed. It's late, but I
can't do it. I have
there's
to know.
something I can tell there's something coming up I need to know.
Yeah.
See you later, Emily.
Great to see you, Emily.
Bye, Emily. As someone who doesn't read fast at all, I would say I read fairly
You zoomed
slow.
through this.
I read Liveship the entire trilogy within a month and a half at most.
Yeah, you zoomed
And that's
through
with
this.
books in between.
Yeah.
Like a book in between.
No, I think I wasn't alone in being astonished at how quickly you went through the Liveships trilogy. But it does have, and that's one of the things that I think holds it in good stead as a trilogy on its own, is it does really enthrall you, and its pacing is so much faster than a lot of other things that Hobb writes, and that it is really compelling, and you just want to get to the next bit, and you need to know what the completion of that storyline is. So it just deepens that trilogy's appeal, because that's not a trilogy you can space out. You kind
It's
of
not
have
one
to
of her
read it quite close
trilogies
together.
where you have people drinking tea and brandy for like
No.
120 pages. You know, there are a couple of small tea and brandy kind of scenes,
There are.
but they're usually interrupted by drama and
Yeah.
action and stuff.
Or something really uncomfortable. Malta
Yeah,
flirting with Gratian still makes my stomach turn every time. No, please don't do that.
stop that.
Yeah.
Please stop that.
Please don't do that.
You're a strange child.
Talking to a stranger.
The other interesting thing, just to stick on Paragon and Kennet for a moment, is they have basically gone through more or less exactly the same trauma. You know, they've been controlled by this horrible man. They've been violated by him, scarred by him, imprisoned
Damaged.
essentially by him, and super damaged by him. And I mean, it's interesting the different ways in which they reacted, which I would maybe largely attribute in a way to Paragon isn't a person. In that, I mean, he's a person in that we would interact with him like a person, but he doesn't have freedom of mobility.
No, he doesn't. He's
right?
a slave.
He can't make choices for himself.
He is a slave, and it goes in. There's so much thematic work within the whole series around slavery and the value of personhood and sentience and giving value to sentience. What I found was by the end of the story, when we've learned how much Paragon has held for Kennet, where he's taken Kennet's pain, he's taken his deaths several times. We kind of figure out that Kennet's not a whole person. He can't work through his trauma because he doesn't have his trauma. He doesn't have the memories to work through. So he can't heal. He can't progress, which is another theme throughout the series, is you have to deal with trauma. You've got to look at it. You've got to try and fix it.
It's also really interesting that one of the first things that he does in the series, that Kennet does in the series, is get a piece of wizard wood carved into himself so it can hold his critical mind.
Yeah.
Like his thinking about himself goes on in this piece of wizard wood on his wrist, not in his head. You know, it's he's externalized even that. You know,
he's externalized a lot of his emotion, because if you notice when the Wizardwood Mask speaks, it's usually about or to the people Kennet should be caring about. And I find that an interesting tidbit. Talking about his first scene, though, is on Others Beach. And it's a lovely little throwaway line. But when the other tells him you can't remove things from the beach, he crushes a crystal globe. And the other says to him, the sea will reclaim what you stole. And that's the leg that the serpent bites off. Just a little, Easter egg kind of thing. But there's so much detail in these books. I'm still finding new ones. And as you said, I've read them a gazillion times. So.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I'm in the middle, not even in the middle yet, of rereading the whole series, and I'm already looking forward to rereading Farseer again.
Yeah,
strangely enough,
because that makes you think about Farseer, and you're like, hang on, I need to reread that to see if I'm right about that. And is that? Yeah.
How does she manage to make us like Kennet?
Well, I think we obviously get his perspective. And I wouldn't say, for me, I never liked Kennet. I was intrigued by him. I was compelled by him.
I could see the possibility in him, because his actions, what he was achieving, were good things. You know, he was freeing slaves. He was getting clean drink water for townspeople. He was achieving really good things.
He wasn't doing it on his own, though.
But he was driving these things.
And he also wasn't doing it for any kind of altruistic reason.
No, he just wanted to make the town better, and he just wanted them to do it his way.
No, he didn't. He didn't want to make the town better. I totally disagree that he wanted to make the town better.
It was like, if we put a watchtower there, and if we do this, the town is safer. Selfishly, he now has a supportive town for me to fence my goods.
Right.
And this is when I say his actions were really positive for a lot of other people.
She does that. So
promise in him.
Hobb did
So
it
when
so
the betrayal occurs at
genius.
the end, I felt betrayed as a reader because I'm like, no, he was on a redemption arc. Only on the reread for me to go, no, he wasn't. The whole
No.
time he gets given option after option after option to choose a better path, and he never ever does. He's incapable of it because he hasn't got his whole self to heal and see those better options. He can't. He's stuck. He cannot evolve as a person because he's not a whole person. He's given away so much of himself to Paragon. He could never have a redemption arc.
I was super
I felt so
impressed
betrayed.
with how Hobb did it.
Yeah.
It felt like I was a cat and she was dragging a string along the
Yes.
ground over and over again, because every time you see Kenneth from the outside,
Yeah.
right, from
He's
somebody else's
crying at the
perspective,
suffering of slaves. No, his eyes are watering
you
because it
start
stinks.
thinking, actually, no, maybe he's not that as bad as I thought he was. And then she takes it away from you immediately afterwards. She switches into his head, and you see all of his manipulative, asshole conniving for what it is. And then it jumps out again, and you see him from two other characters' perspectives, and you're like, yeah, I don't know, maybe he's convincing me a little. So, like, she makes you as the reader experience what the people in the story interacting with him are experiencing.
And you believe their faith in him. You know, all of those people around him who think he's the best thing since sliced bread, you get why.
Yeah. Master manipulator.
Absolutely.
I would argue that he's not even a manipulator. Like, again, going back to...
It's the luck in his name.
Well, no, so...
His actions can be seen from such a positive light, and people choose to see them in that way. None of them go, oh, his eyes are watering. It must stink in here. They're going, oh, his eyes, he's crying because the slaves are suffering. And they've taken that meaning in themselves. Kenneth hasn't manipulated them. He hasn't gone down there and gone, I'm going to pretend to cry. No, he's gone down there. He's been honest. His eyes are streaming because he thinks it's foul and it stinks and he just wants to get out of there. And other people look at him and go, oh, what a wonderful man. He's crying.
But he is totally manipulative, because every time he realizes that something like that is going on, he doesn't correct anybody's impression. No. He takes full advantage of it, you know?
Yeah, so, but I don't think it's deliberate manipulation.
What were you going to say, Evie?
So, well, twofold. I would argue that that's not manipulation. That's just, I guess this is
opportunism.
This is what I kind of, I was always suspicious of Kenneth from the time that I met him.
You had a good handle on him early.
He never once throughout the trilogy made a choice. He always
reacted.
Yeah, reacted to other people's choices, and he went along with it. He never manipulated people into doing anything. He's just like, oh, Etta happened to kill this person for me. Okay. She's cool. And then she decides to come along. He doesn't invite her.
No. But when she does decide to come along, he sees how that could work to his benefit. He's like, oh yeah, okay. That hey, has payoff for me, sure. And
I would argue that's the little charm that's like
the charm likes
telling him. Yeah.
The charm thinks Etta is marvelous. The charm woos Etta by talking to her at night. And she thinks it's Kenneth because it speaks with his voice.
I know. So that's what I'm saying is like, I don't think Kenneth has
people to him.
Kenneth does not make any choices whatsoever. No. He just, I mean,
he allows his luck to pave the path. Yeah. And it's, I think that's part of the ease of thinking that he could be redeemed.
I never thought he could be redeemed.
Because he never made those active choices to be evil. I was like, oh, he's totally redeemable. Until I realized that he never was making choices. Because he couldn't. He just couldn't.
The thing that changed for me was I was never looking for a redemption arc for him. I wanted him to get an arrow in the face pretty much the whole trilogy. But by the end, I sympathized with why he was the way he was.
Yeah.
You know, by the end, I got it. I was like, okay, you've been through some really horrible shit, and you're basically evil still, but I understand
Yeah.
why.
But
you
why?
know?
I get why. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Thornall said, yeah, a lot of
Yes, that's
evil
exactly who
people
Kenneth
do
is.
good, and yeah. But
That's
to
exactly
me,
who Kenneth is. By
I sort of
accident.
I see those as kind of separate things. It's like, yes, there is some good in the world. That doesn't change the fact that he's basically evil.
Yeah.
You know, he
It is-
has done some things that benefit other people, but when you
They
look
were
at
no
his
more a
motivations,
choice for him than anything else.
yeah,
I think so he was never
Actually, I say this, he does make a choice. He makes a choice toward the end of the series, specifically in the assault scene at the end, toward the end of Ship of Destiny, and that is the choice. That is the choice that makes him irredeemable, because he's
right.
made the choice
And
he's
that
chosen
and
to
that's
assault.
the point. That is the point at which he is, I think, truly evil.
Yeah, and he's
I don't think he was
irredeemable. That
ever
is the
evil
moment.
from the beginning. He was just, he
Yeah.
just was. And by perpetrating that trauma that he experienced, that made him evil in that moment.
Yeah. That was certainly the point where I was like, okay, he's not coming back.
That's
from
it.
this.
You're done.
Like he's got to get fucked up by the end of the book. You know,
exactly. And just at the point where I've decided to hate him actively is when we get the full story, the full unraveling of who Kenneth is and his connection to Paragon. And just as I decide to hate him is when I'm given the reasons why he is the way he is. And you're like, really, Hob? Really? Now you tell me this? Too late.
That's exactly what reminded me of Malazan, because there are so many villains I love to hate in Malazan, and then they get taken away from him. Yeah. DK Moon also wanted him to get an arrow in the face.
Yep.
So moving on to the other love to hate.
Yeah, I hate Kyle the most of anybody in any book I've ever read ever in my life. I hate him with a passion.
Doesn't. Yeah, and I mean,
Kyle doesn't bother me as much as other people. Like I was expecting
I want
to
to
hate
yeet him into the sun, quoting Kyle Bishop.
Yeah, I don't. I was expecting to hate Kyle, and I was annoyed by him. That's probably not the right word, but I was frustrated with him because I have experienced people like that in my life. There are other characters later on in the series that I hate even more than Kyle that no one warned me about. And
no, because I hate Kyle so much, it just didn't even occur to me that, of course, this person is equally hateable. But
more hateable, infinitely more hateable.
This is the joy of reading, is that you bring your own mind with you, and so you're going to connect with different things that Hob gives you. So I can want to throw Kyle into the sun. You'd be like, oh yeah, whatever. The character you hate, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I think the difference between Kenneth and Kyle is you actually get Kenneth's perspective.
Yeah.
If we had gotten something from Kyle's perspective, I wonder if because like I kind of understand Kyle. Like I understand his motives. He's a dickhole, but I understand his motives. Like I wouldn't call them honorable, but like they are. He wants to make sure that things are running. He wants to protect the trader family, that type of thing. But he's doing
does he though? Does he though? That's not what I got out of
cruelty.
That's not what I got out of Kyle. That's not what I.
He's doing it with just really vile behavior. Like this isn't a process of I'm being misunderstood. The things that are coming out of his mouth and he's saying to people around him are vile and horrible and hurtful. And he knows this and still thinks he's right. And I
don't think he realizes that he thinks that what he's doing and what he's saying is wrong, because he thinks it's right and he doesn't understand, and I don't think he processes that other people might think this is wrong, that he's treating them poorly. In his mind, he is doing the right thing, and he's
cruel and stupid. He's lived in this society. He's worked with these people and hidden his tendencies. Because he's hidden these tendencies for years. He knows he shouldn't be doing it. because he's hidden it until after Ephron died. Then he lets rip. When he's in control of that family is when he shows his true colors, which means he knew it was unacceptable until that point, and no one could stop him. That's what gets me.
And maybe I'm less forgiving than you, Evie, but I do not. He says it a lot, but I do not believe, Kyle, that what he cares about is the family.
No.
What he cares about is his reputation.
Yeah.
How he personally is seen.
Yeah.
And that's all he wants from the family, is to make something that makes him look good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, like, Kenneth, of course it's not fair, right? We don't really get much of Kyle. We don't get his own perspective. We don't get much of his background. We don't know. He's set up to be just a bad guy, and that's it. You know, but with Kyle, to me, he was selfish, arrogant, and cruel. And that was basically his whole personality, with no real redeeming qualities at all that I could notice, and no motivation that I understood or could sympathize with at all. You know, he was just an asshole to the extreme that he lets his son be tattooed as a slave.
I was literally just thinking that. I was thinking he allowed
like,
that to happen. And he, even if you say, okay, well, he didn't know that Wintro had been held and kept captive as a slave, he had to buy Wintro as a slave to get him back. And at that point, he could have said, but I'm not going to get you tattooed as a slave. Now we're going to go back to the ship and we're going to carry on. And now that's not a problem anymore. No, instead he goes, I'm going to then tattoo this ship on your face. You don't get to run away again.
Yeah.
This is your son.
Yeah.
This.
And to me, the whole motivation for doing that was, you made me look bad.
Yeah.
You know, that was the main motivation I can understand, is you made me look bad and you will not obey me. So I'm going to do the most extreme thing I can to essentially break you, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas with Kenneth, I mean, certainly by the end, we have a lot of potential reasons to sympathize with Kenneth. And he is at least doing good along the way, in a way.
Again, it comes down, I think, to the fact that Kenneth isn't choosing to be cruel or hurtful or nasty until that decision he does make to assault Althea. But he isn't cruel to people. The people around him adore him. I mean, they literally will die for him.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to die for Kyle.
No.
Nobody. Nobody's dying for Kyle. And the fact that he still feels hard done by, even after everything has collapsed around him. He's been in a freaking dungeon, essentially, for months by the time he gets rescued. He still feels hard done by. None of that he brought on himself. That was
He's still
someone else's
whining
fault.
as well.
And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Dude!
Yeah.
The only thing I am grateful for is that he died and it didn't ruin Malta's idea of her ideal father in her head. She never had to face the reality of who her father was. And I kind of like that she got left with that memory of something in her childhood.
Yeah.
Because, but nothing else about Kyle and the whole trilogy. Just hate him so much.
Can we talk about things that we love, like Brashen and Althea?
Oh yes.
I was like reading Ship of Magic, I'm like, Brashen and Althea better have a romance. Brashen and Althea better have a romance. And she does it so well.
She does. Because it's just a lovely, quiet evolution of two people who are frightened of being in a relationship.
Yeah. And I never understood people like having fictional crushes on characters. And I'm like,
oh no, I
now
Brashen.
Understand it with Brashen. Oh my God.
I love Brashen. Brashen is wonderful.
See, Althea kind of annoyed me.
Paragon there too. Because when Brashen and Althea do get together on board Paragon, Paragon is used to anything sexual being a fight, being about dominance, being about power, not anything caring.
Compassion.
And it astonishes Paragon that this could be an act of caring and for it to have, positive emotions connected to it. And when you consider how old Paragon is as a ship, and the fact that he has a child as part of him, that his personality has evolved from all of these things, that this is the first time he's seen kindness and caring between two people touching each other is both heartbreaking and wonderful, that now he sees this is how this should be.
Yeah.
This should be. It's caring and communicative and about goodness. And I loved that because it tells you how caring it is between Brashen and Althea without needing to invade that situation and allowing that privacy for them. And I really loved how that was done.
What were you going to say, Matt?
Sorry.
Althea actually kind of annoyed me the whole time. I never really, I don't know, maybe because she's a bit
Spoiled?
Yeah, I mean, the whole family's basically spoiled. I mean, certainly at the beginning, Malta is
Yes.
insanely spoiled. Althea is insanely spoiled, just in a different way. They're all extremely spoiled. I guess my feeling with Althea was maybe I'm just too old or sensible or something. I don't know. I kept looking at her and I was like, of course you're not going to get what you want, you idiot. Like, how do you think the world works? There's no way for you to get what you want, the whole time. And she's constantly going, yeah, but then we're going to go to the court and we're going to go stand in front of the traders.
They're going to give this to me because I deserve it.
Like, no, they're
and
not.
I'm a great sailor. And I'm like, actually, honey, you
could someone
aren't.
slap you, please?
Yeah.
You're not that good a sailor. You're just a kid.
Out, she earns her stripes, and I respect that. But again, and the more I read it, the more I see it, is the parallel between Althea and Malta. They are both incredibly stroppy, strong-willed women who want what they want.
Yeah.
And they're just going about it very different ways. And by the end of the trilogy, I have more respect for Malta than I do for Althea.
Yeah.
And I haven't figured out how to put that into words why yet. But that's that's the emotion I come out of it with.
I have the same feeling, and the way I would explain it is Malta accepts responsibility.
Yeah.
Malta is the one who really grows up, and she says, okay, there are things that are important to me that I want to protect. There are people I love. I will take responsibility for what happens in certain places. And Althea is just like, I want to go be a pirate, and she's just like, she's still a kid playing dress up in a way, whereas Malta really basically through trauma again, she's developing scales and she's been kidnapped and she's got scars and, whatever.
I mean,
she grows up.
To be fair, and to defend Althea, because I will defend her till the end of my days, Althea wasn't put in those types of dire situations.
No, but at the end of it, she was the one who was assaulted. So the trauma for both of them is very different, granted.
Yeah, so she's very, from the beginning to even to the very end, like she's very, not isolated, but very contained. Oh my God, what's the word I'm thinking of?
I don't know, but I would actually say yes. Isolated is a good word.
Yeah. So her world is just the ship. That's it. She's never experienced the world outside of that. And so and then relatively, she has not experienced hardship the way Malta has. Malta has gone to the Rain Wild. She's released the dragon. She's turning into an elderling. She's having to deal with the satrap and And so Althea doesn't have that experience to force her to grow up, even though I know obviously she's older. But she doesn't have the life experience to kind of compare to Malta.
No.
So.
And that's an explanation for why.
Sheltered, thank you. Sheltered, thank you. Thank you.
That is the word. Perfect.
Bingo. Yes. Yep.
And I don't know. I mean, ultimately, it's like I can look at Malta, and as you say, she just went through so much more and had to kind of evolve. And she has the benefit, and a lot of people miss this as to why Malta changes so quickly, is because that can be jarring. She goes from spoiled and petty very quickly into seeing how things actually are. And it's when she's trying to free Tintaglia, she agrees to let Tintaglia drown her in the memories before the dragon will agree to go and get Rain.
She's
and rescue her
magically
father.
aged, basically.
And she gets dumped with an entire society's worth of memories and hangs on to who she is. They've told you that you can drown in the memories and it will make you go mental. In the same way that Fitz gets told if you lose yourself in the skill, you're a drooling babe.
Yeah.
And I equate the two situations. Malta is able to hang on to who she is at the core and take all of those memories and take all of those experiences and all of that history and all of that understanding into herself and still retain who she is as a person. The next few chapters are her kind of coping with the fact that now she understands better what behavior is rational and what is petty and what is real and what is meaningful, because she now has all of that understanding within her, all
And
while
she's
still
also-
being this little girl who wants pretty things.
She's also trapped in the middle of a situation where if she tries to be petty, if she doesn't pay attention to the
it's not gonna
important
work.
things, she and many other people will probably die very soon, you know? So, yeah, she has to grow up.
Yeah, but it's the fact that she held herself together in that moment that impresses me. That sense of self. It's like, no, this is who I am, and you're not going to overwhelm me. And I respect that kind of, I don't know what you want to call stubbornness.
She's definitely stubborn. She's super stubborn.
And that's it's not a sudden. I would argue that it's not a shift or a change, it's a leveling up, because she's always been that person from the beginning. That annoying little girl at the beginning is the same person,
highly intelligent
but you as a reader are shifting your perspective of her. That annoying trait that you saw, that's assurance.
That's the same.
That is confidence. So.
And perseverance. I mean, that's the thing I got most out of her is like,
she wasn't going to give up.
It's just, it's not really that my perspective changed of her. It's that she changed what she was focusing on, you know, like at the beginning,
smart.
At the beginning, I wanted to slap her because she was smart and she was perseverant and she was doing all of this to get stupid things. You know, she wanted a better dress, or she wanted to play some sort of stupid game with a man or with her friends or whatever. And that stuff was really stupid and annoying. But exactly like you said, Evie, exactly the same characteristics like intelligence, perseverance, cunning, all of the things she was doing at the beginning. She started doing those with survival in mind. And then it looks quite heroic.
And that touches on one of the other themes that are quite strong in the non-fics books. Excuse me. Is it's very feminist to some degree. And a lot of who Malta is as a child is a direct response to the way her family behaves in this society that's very patriarchal. She has no value as a woman except as something pretty. And so for her job is to be pretty and to be desirable, because that's what the patriarchy has told her is her value. And not educating her, not letting her make these decisions for herself, not giving her the power to make decisions, led to that spoiled, driven little brat that you just want to shake because she's so annoying. And it ties into, well, if she'd been given chores when she was a little kid, if she'd been given responsibility for her own spending, all of those things tie into this male-dominated society. Whereas just 2 generations earlier, her grandmother, it was completely normal for her grandmother to run the business, you know. But it was getting phased out at that point societally.
Another thing that was Kyle's fault.
You know, exactly.
Yeah. So pretty much you can blame everything bad in the novels on Kyle, is the conclusion. Thornall says...
holding on to who you are,
Hob has Bene Gesserit. That actually never occurred to me, that parallel, but you are absolutely right. There is a big...
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Dune definitely came before. Maybe it was an inspiration. I have no idea. I've never heard Hob talk about it. But yeah, it is similar. In Dune, there is this organization of women who have trained themselves very highly, like the highest anyone can, in sort of psychic abilities.
Okay.
And one of the things they do, their highest ranking people, they drink this thing which gives them the memories of all of the Bene Gesserit before them.
Ah.
In their lineage, line wise.
In their lineage, yeah. Not like all of them,
Okay.
but like direct
Oh, I like
descent,
it.
or that they are descended from. And it's a similar sort of idea. That kind of brings me to, and we haven't talked about that one at all. The are you guys still there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You just went black for a minute and disappeared. Probably a problem on my side. So at the end of Farseer, we get what we think are dragons.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. So those are the dragons in the, or
Now
maybe
we
they're
know
the
what Elderlings
Elderlings.
are, which is
or
why I
maybe
don't
they're
like people to read live ships first.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of Farseer, you maybe think you know what Elderlings are. You maybe think you know what dragons are. You're wrong about both. And there's a huge reveal, which is, I mean, it's not a huge, like, one chapter reveal. It's kind of like trickle reveal
you come to
throughout the entire
understand
trilogy.
That
was, on my first read, I found the serpents super boring and annoying.
a lot of people do.
I was like, Jesus, these fucking serpents can just go to hell. I'm not interested. Can we go back to the people?
Yeah.
And knowing what was coming and what we were being exposed to, I paid a lot more attention to the serpents in the second read, especially She Who Remembers, like that scene with Wintro, and She Who Remembers when he frees her. I was just blown away by that.
Yeah.
Hobb has the most interesting idea of dragons I've ever run into in fantasy.
I love it.
This whole ecosystem and like how they breed and how
they're based on dragonflies, that life cycle. And
okay. Can you make talking ships out of dragonfly cocoons?
I don't know. They wouldn't be very big ones.
No, but you
I don't know how useful it'd be.
Anyway.
Or you could use a lot and they'd be
for your
insane.
Legos. Yeah.
So,
maybe, yeah. True.
My thing was always that I mean, I have to go back a ways, but the first time I read them, I remember reading that first prologue chapter from the serpents thinking, what? I thought it was ships. Okay, this is weird. And then as we're getting more and more serpent chapters through, I'm thinking, well, they're here for a reason. So I should probably pay attention, because I got to the point where I was like, I just want to skip these bits.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. Don't do that. They're here for a reason. So I'm reading them through, and they start to talk about having memories of flight, and they see an area in the seabed that's overgrown with seaweed, and they realize that it's ruins of something. And so as the serpents, they rip away some of the seaweed and they recognize an arch. And that's the moment for me where I was like, holy crap, somehow these serpents are dragons. And you're like, how the hell? And at that point, I was on board with their story because I had to know how, why are they serpents? Why have they been stuck as serpent? Why are they losing their memories? Why?
Yep.
I was in at that point with the serpent storyline. And so I was ready as the reveals came from then. I was able to tie that together from that point. And again, it's Hobb. At that point, you realize you have been getting clues all the way along. But that was the moment for me.
The first read, it was for a lot of the time, it was annoying to me because it starts out as a mystery that is so mysterious you don't know what the mystery is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I don't even know what I'm looking for. Like there's these serpents swimming in the ocean, and so what? It has nothing to do with anything else that's going on. And
they're not even serpents that know what they're doing. They're confused serpents.
Yeah, exactly. They're like brain damaged serpents, like what the hell is going on?
Very odd.
But in my second read, I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And I was paying much more attention. And then a lot of things made much more sense to me than they did in my first read, where I think I was approaching the whole thing as, can we get on with this? And this is boring. And can we get back to the real stuff that's happening? So I wasn't paying very close attention. I was just sick of it and bored. But
Yeah.
yeah. Horrendous says Farseer dragons were disappointing. I agree.
Yeah.
And the dragon reveal in Liveship was so satisfying. Yeah. I like at the end of Farseer, I remember this the first time I read it. I was like, no,
These are our
no,
dragons.
that
Okay.
cannot be dragons. Like, okay, they're statues and they animate and they're dragons, but that's not the dragons in this world. That
No.
can't.
And so you let yourself think, oh, well, that must be the Elderlings.
There's got to be more.
The Elderlings.
Yeah.
It's because dragons are dragons.
Yeah.
This must be. You know.
Also wrong. But
Also but they, what was I going to say? The when we meet Tintaglia, the selfishness of her, I loved the selfishness of Tintaglia, and I can't think of Mike recently was saying he doesn't like the dragons in Hobbes' world. They're not mighty. They're not these great benevolent beings.
noble. Yeah.
And I'm like, they're huge, enormous, giant predators who have immense power, are incredibly long-lived. Of course they're arrogant. Of course they're selfish. They're
have
better
ruled
than
the
everybody.
world. Have
And
ruled the world
they're
with
gonna
humans
have
as servants.
that attitude. They're gonna have. They're gonna be better than you. You don't count. I love that her drag that Tintaglia at the moment that you've met is arrogant and selfish and like, why should I care?
I love what
I
Sarah
think
said, that they have cat personalities.
Yeah, that's true. Which is I really like the dynamic between Malta and Tintaglia.
Yeah,
because Malta's the
refuses
only
to be
one that
treated-
could really hold up, you know.
Yeah.
She's a queen in her own right.
Yeah.
You know, she hasn't been labeled as such yet. She hasn't been given any power, but she's like, no, I am worthy of your time.
Yeah.
And refuses to concede any power to this dragon that could eat her in a single bite. She's like, no, I'm not going to be scared of you.
But also the cool thing about that is Malta is a trader's daughter, right?
Yeah,
and
so
Malta,
she knows how to
Malta
bargain.
sees, she's like, you need
You want
something from me too. Like you eating me is not you winning.
Doesn't win you what you want.
No, exactly. So we need to deal and you need to shut up. You know, so
I have
that
something
whole dynamic I thought was super cool. I mean,
as an aside, I did like Selden getting being like
enthralled.
Enthralled and being singing to her basically or whatever.
Yeah.
I think is what they called it.
Did it make you realize why Kenneth had such a fast bond with Vivacia? Because he speaks to Vivacia in much of the same language that Selden uses with Tintaglia. It's very praising. It's very
it's
mighty
flattery,
queen,
flattery all the time. Yeah,
you know, it's always and very overblown, very over the top, and it seems to sort of feed Vivacia, like she gains something from it, and I loved that. That just that tiny little touch that isn't really meaningful necessarily on any level, but that parallel really shows you how much dragon is in Vivacia.
That did not occur to me until you just said it, but it absolutely makes sense. Yeah. It's just one of those tiny little things that just deepens those connections that we're being given. She has certainly a large part dragon personality. Yeah. Man, there's so much in these books. There is so much in these books.
Yeah. Sorry, I just have to remember timelines. I was about to go. No, I can't say that yet. That's a later story.
Speaking of cat personalities, Sarah, I can give you a really, really tiny Tawny Man spoiler. In the first book of Tawny Man, you get a cat talking to Fitz with the wit, and the actual cat personalities are basically just like, pick me up, you'll feel better.
Has cats.
Love the cat.
Make
you
a lap.
love the cat. Exactly. Lap now.
She left.
Is that your
took away the
experience
lap.
With your Fitz, Matt? That you've
no, she's well, I'm not exactly sure.
Girl.
I'm not exactly sure yet what her personality will be like, because she's still in the what the fuck is going on, where am I kind of mode. It's been
How long
4
have you
days.
had her?
4 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's getting used to things. She's still freaking out a little bit and being nervous and checking things out. And
Yeah, she's probably got a whole
but
lot more
she's-
freedom than she's had for a while. So
Yeah, and she's getting a lot more affectionate and stuff. But I don't think she's a lap cat. I think she's more of a sit next to you cat.
Yeah.
You know, she
Female
likes
cats
leaning
come
against
tend to
me,
be-
but not on me.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Female cats they will come to you when they want attention.
Yeah.
Do not try to give them attention on your
No.
terms. It's got to be on their terms.
Yeah.
So.
And they'll tell you when they've had enough.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
should possibly say a gracious farewell to our Evie, who I think is being called for dinner as we speak
Yep. She said she was leaving about nowish.
to have
Yeah.
dinner. So thank you so much. And hey, we'll probably still be talking when you're done. So
Yeah, probably. So.
Possibly.
tell us about your dinner then.
Thanks for
All right.
joining us, Evie. It was good to see you
Thank
again.
you for letting me
Always
join.
lovely. So,
Bye.
See you later. Enjoy dinner.
alrighty. So yeah,
So-
the arrogance and selfishness of Tintaglia, and Malta knowing her value to her, and going, no,
Yeah.
you have to treat me like an equal if you want what I've got. And I just admire the chutzpah in Malta. I
Yeah.
just really admire it.
Yeah.
And you know, when you consider how much you just wanted to smack her in that first book, it's just,
Oh my
it's
God.
a remarkable upgrade. It's remarkable. you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
again,
I was
all of the
desperately
women in the
wanting to smack
family
her.
are, yeah. I mean, her mother, when we talk about Ronica, her grandmother, but when we talk about Kefria, Malta's mother, because we see quite a lot of Kefria in the books, and she's very passive, she's very timid. And something I think
most
most
of it, yeah.
readers don't click on is she still lives at home with her mother
Yeah.
and her
Yeah, yeah.
children.
Yep.
And that ties back to what I was saying about Kyle, in that as a man, supposedly how he is later, why is he letting his wife live at home with her mother? Why isn't he not demanding that they leave and set up a home of their own where he can be king of the castle? And I genuinely believe it's because leaving her at home with her mother doesn't let her get used to making any decisions. She doesn't ever have to step up and make choices for her family, for herself. She doesn't ever get given the accounts because it's not her house. So she's remains dependent on Kyle for everything. Whereas if she had her own home and she had to make all these decisions for herself, she would have to have developed, at the very least, a little bit of backbone and a little bit of understanding of what goes into running a household. But she still lives at home with her mum. And Ronica has held on to that power.
I thought that the reason for Kyle to do that was that he came from nowhere in a way. Like he wasn't, he and his family weren't a big name, whereas Ronica and her family were. So him taking over as part of that family and being based in their mansion and all of that was more uplifting for his reputation and status than it would be if he just said, oh yeah, we're going to move over there and Ronica's going to live in the big mansion by herself or whatever, you know.
Which
It
ties
felt
back
more
to-
like it was a big step up for him.
And that's why I'm saying it's only when you get the reveal later, after Ephron's death, when we see Kyle's true colours.
Yeah.
When he becomes very much I'm the man of my family and we will do what I say.
Yeah.
That's what surprises me, that person who he really was never pulled Kefria out of that situation. So why didn't he?
Yeah.
So what was the motivation to not give himself that immediate pleasure of being king in his own castle? Because clearly that's what he would have liked. Where's the benefit? The benefit is he has a wife who is totally dependent on other people. So he always holds the power, always holds the power. And when he becomes the head of that household, he gains all of the wealth, not just his wife's portion of it. And
you know who's no Kai,
you might have noticed.
we already talked about Kenneth. Like it's possible to love and hate Kenneth at the same time, and to learn some sympathy for him by the
redeeming
end.
In Kyle.
No, Kyle is just an asshole.
Yeah,
he never gets any better. I mean, he eventually becomes pitiful.
Yes, he does.
You know, but he doesn't become more sympathetic.
No.
There is a character that I have been waiting to hear someone talk about. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about David Restart.
Oh, that's a fun one because
And
is
he to me is
sad.
like one of the most tragic and
he is tragic.
complex characters. You know, he's not a simple bad guy or anything, but he's
No,
also
because
not really a
initially
good
that's how
guy.
he reads. Initially, you're just like,
At the
look, you
beginning, it's just
grasping
like,
old
oh,
bugger.
he's just
Fuck off.
he's just greedy.
Yeah.
But Restart is one. I mean, he's obviously
He's
a
got a
side
really
character,
sad story.
but he's a very tragic side character to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get that
What do you
from
think of
Monica when
Restart?
I feel really, really badly for him. I not only understand his character, I can see how it evolved. I can see how he fell so far and how gradual it will have been for him to not have
Yeah.
noticed, and that who he was as a young man would be horrified by who he is now. And I
Yeah.
think that's the sadness, is that he never intended to be that person. But
Yeah.
when he lost his wife and he lost his children, he had nothing. And so as a trader, what can I do? I can still trade. And as he's losing his friends gradually over time because he's becoming less and less reputable in his trades, he hasn't equated the two. He hasn't said to himself, why am I losing these friends? He's just looked around one day and gone, oh, nobody wants to have me for dinner. I don't, okay.
Well,
Monica will
it's
have me for
also
dinner.
it's
You know,
also
and-
something that you would have to really deal with it if you admitted that it's happening.
Yeah, and he doesn't
know,
know.
it would be
He hasn't
crushing.
noticed
No.
that it's happening. Veronica's the one that tells you that his clothes are baggy and stained because
I always
his wife
imagined
would
him
have
with
done
a-
that for him.
I always imagined him with a comb over.
Yes, and he just doesn't know how ridiculous
Just a
it looks.
horrible comb over. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if someone, like if his wife had still been alive, just somebody took care of him and
Yeah.
would just say to him every now and then, right, we're going to go to dinner at this family's home, and those connections that she wouldn't have gained for him, but she will have kept him at a
Supported
position
him, yeah.
socially to
Yeah.
keep him in touch with the right people, to make the right trades, to keep him at a respectable level. And in
Yeah.
losing those, he just loses any sort of pride in himself, where
Yeah.
he doesn't notice how far he's fallen. That when Ephron dies, he simply sees this family of women as people that he cares about and to look after them. But it feels like he's just kind of going, right, okay, now you're all mine. I'm going to make all these deals for you. He genuinely thinks he's doing something helpful. That, look, you guys don't have any income anymore. You guys, this is terrible. I think I can get a connection to the satrap when he comes. And Malta's young and really attractive and beautiful.
I can sell your
and
daughter
you
to
could have all
satrap
these
for you.
benefits. You know, but you could have all these benefits because
Yeah.
we don't know how awful the satrap is at this point.
Yeah.
There could be all this positive thing come out of this connection to this. He genuinely thinks he's doing a good thing. And
Yeah.
it's that fumbling nature of it, and how shocked he is when somebody leaves a dead pig in his carriage. That's the first time he's ever really had to face the fact that people hate you.
Well, and the other thing I got was
He
like
was so upset.
he's obviously he's fallen. He's
Yeah.
become an embarrassment to the traders.
Yeah.
He's embarrassing even just to look at. Like his clothes
Yeah.
don't fit and they're stained, and like I said, I imagine him with a comb
The
over.
come over.
And so all of his friends are going away.
Yeah.
And the new traders become his friends.
Yeah.
And to me, it was really clear. The new traders see him as a useful tool.
Absolutely.
And he's jumping into
He thinks he's being
the
honored.
relationships as if he's being honored. He's making new friends. He's staying up to date, like modern and that kind of thing. And it's just like every time he came on the page, I was just like, dude, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so
and
sorry.
that's the tragedy.
You're
Is
so
he thought he
sad.
was being honored. He thought he was doing the right thing. And because he'd lost all of those social connections through losing his wife, he genuinely doesn't understand the gravity of what he's doing. And where he's agreed with Kyle instead of backing Althea, David's not a sailor. So he's never done the whole sailing off with the live ship and doing
Right.
that whole business. So
He's
he
just a
hasn't
trader.
spent almost any time with Althea since she was a little girl. So
Yeah.
he knows nothing about her. But in his mind, Kyle is a bloke. He's been sailing. He's been first mate in the it seems logical to David.
He's a
And that
reputable captain.
why would a girl want to be a sailor? Surely she
Yep.
wants to be at home being looked after and being pampered and
Yep.
having all the good things that money bring. And it just makes it really sad. And he's just a sad character. And he just dies tragically. And you just think, that poor man.
Yeah.
Nobody's left. Who cares that you've gone?
Yeah.
Nobody grieves the loss of this man who,
In fact, most people are
began as
probably
a
glad
good
that he's
man, I
gone.
think.
Yeah.
And that's really sad.
Yeah. My heart broke every time he turned up, because you could just see how out of touch he was, how ignorant he was of what was really going on, how he had basically thrown his whatever ethics he might have had kind of thrown out the window so that he could keep earning some money somehow.
Yeah.
And how much he just depended on his wife, who was dead.
I mean, you even discover really quickly how little thought his staff have for him. You know, they don't care about him. They're not looking after him.
He's the joke of the entire, all of Bingtown.
The whole of Bingtown. It's a joke.
Except for the new traders who are just using him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is really, really tragic. Yeah.
And I think if we didn't ever get that backstory from Ronica, that, you know, that he was a good man, he was a good young man, they had these really close connections when they were younger, and their children played together, and she and his wife were really good friends. I think without that insight, he would just have been pathetic. You'd have just been like, oh, for Christ's sake. Okay, finally he's gone. But instead, Hob gives you that backstory and shows you who he could have been and shows you what he was. And so you get the tragedy of it. You get the sadness. And that's, I think, the signature of Hob, isn't it? Is giving you that for not even a secondary character. He's tertiary. He's not even tertiary. He's like an extra in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
and
but he plays a lot of important roles at certain points in the story. He plays a lot of different important roles, and one of the things I really like about Hob in general, and I think Restat is one of her best examples of this. He's a foil for other characters.
Yes,
him being in the story makes Ronica look better.
Absolutely,
right? Like, first of all, that she still has her ethics and morality, and that she is trying to, you know, go some sort of straight path, and that she's a person with integrity. And he obviously has lost all of that somehow along the way. And then the fact that Ronica is still trying to maintain a connection to him, that she feels sad for him that he has no friends. So she's trying to be a friend to him, that she can remember and isn't just embarrassed by him, but that she can remember that he did a lot for them in the past, and that they've always had a friendship, and that she wants to try and stick to that. All of that stuff makes Ronica look like an amazing woman. It gives you that
insight into her, that she values these things.
Exactly. Very, very cool. One of the characters that kind of annoyed me, I think, the entire way through, but just on a sort of low-key level, was Brashen.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because I love Brashen. I mean, I'm always open to new lenses, though. So what is it about Brashen that rubbed you?
Brashen is a junkie who doesn't care about the future.
Yeah.
At all. And I mean, at some point he kind of starts to. He kind of learns to, and he kind of comes out of it. But I mean, it was really harsh the way it was done, but I could totally relate to Brashen's family throwing him out. I'm like, he's a fucking junkie who just steals your money.
Yeah, I think
you have to cut him off at some point. Maybe I've just known in my real life, I've known some very dishonest junkies.
I think what has redeems that for me is, you get it in drips and drabs, like always in a Hob story, is that his family never attempted to help him. Like, as this developed as a teen, they never said, okay, stop. You can't bunk off school. You're going to your lessons, or, you know, punishment. No, instead they were like, oh, well, okay, whatever. And then when he would steal or he would run up the credit on store, they just paid it.
Yeah.
They had a fight and it was over. And he was never actually, not so much given the opportunity, but he was never encouraged to change any of these behaviors. There was never a punishment ongoing to his, there was never a detriment to his behavior until it got so bad his family just went, oh look, we're not doing this anymore. And so he's left going, well, hang on, I'm not doing anything different than I did the last 20 times, and why now am I getting punished?
Yeah.
So it and I think that was a parenting fail, I think, to some degree. And clearly Ephron has seen the potential in him, because he said, I will let you sail on Vivacia, because nobody else would, because he was the son of a trader family. I will let you sail on Vivacia, but you have to be clean.
Yeah.
And Brashen states unequivocally that he was clean all the years he was on Vivacia.
Yeah.
And he loved being on Vivacia, and he showed he was a good sailor on Vivacia. But he had no future thoughts, because what was he going to be? He was just going to be a sailor forever.
Yeah.
That's fine. And it's only when Vivacia was sort of taken out from under him, when Kyle sent him off the ship, that he was like, well, now I've got nothing. And like any junkie, like anybody who's been addicted to anything, even successfully come out of it for many, many years, any addiction can have you back like that.
Yeah, sure.
And with all of his world falling apart, because let's face it, he lived on Vivacia. That was his home as well.
Yeah.
He's not just lost his job, he's lost his home and all his friends. That's it. You're alone and abandoned with nothing. So of course he's going to go and get a hit. I mean,
yeah, sure.
That's what they do. And that he's formed this friendship with Paragon on the beach speaks to his integrity. He sees Paragon as a person. He doesn't see Paragon as somebody to be ashamed of, that we're going to hide in that back bay. Paragon is a lonely person who did nothing wrong and is being punished. So Paragon sees that connection, and Brashen feels that connection. And so they kind of comfort each other in a weird way.
Yeah. No. I mean, all of the bits with Brashen and Paragon I actually liked quite a lot, but he just keeps falling back, and
so does anyone with an addiction.
Yeah,
and
I know
how she does it so beautifully, and that she really points out you can't just get an addicted person to stop whatever it is they're addicted to. There has to be something worth fighting that fight every day for. And if you haven't got something to fight every day for, you're never going to get out of it. Yeah. And so when we see Brashen get something to fight for, when we see Brashen have a goal, that, okay, I can get Paragon sailworthy. I can do that. Yeah. That becomes more important than that hit of Sinden. And we see him really evolve at that point into the man that I think Ephron knew he could be. Yeah. And I wonder at that point if his parents looked on and thought, we kind of had a hand in that, because they did a good job with their younger son. Yeah. So
Sarah says, but he loves Althea so much. I would say that's because he and Althea are both remarkably irresponsible and immature individuals. Yeah. They prop each other up. And it's only when
they both had to look after Paragon that they had to grow up.
Yeah.
And that connects them really strongly.
I think that at the beginning, I didn't have any feeling of love. Like the thing with the two of them is excitement. Yes. It's infatuation. Like Brashen is kind of a bad boy, and Althea's run away from home, and she's the captain's daughter, and I think it was just like it was a bit of a forbidden fruit thing, Yeah. And there wasn't anything about love going on there at all. But, then as they both matured and became responsible,
then they're out on the whaling vessel where no one cares about either of them.
Yeah.
She saves him from crimpers. He stitches up her head. There's caring in that moment. So yes, they sleep with each other. Brashen goes head over heels. Althea goes, that felt too much like feelings, and fled. Let's face it, fled outright. Yeah. And they've both matured in the interim, and they've both grown up quite a lot, so that when they come together over Paragon, they do it from a more evolved sort of person perspective, that here's someone that actually needs caring for, and we can do that. And together we make a really good team. And almost the three of them together help each other progress into better people, which is just wonderful to read. That whole middle book, that whole Madship book where we see that with Paragon is a masterclass in how people help each other become better people.
What I thought she did so well in that is it continually, the whole like Paragon project from beginning to end felt remarkably fragile.
Oh
Like
yes,
there
at any
was
moment.
there was no point where they were working on Paragon, trying to get Paragon to calm down, trying to get Paragon to think well of himself and be able to do productive things and whatever. At no point did I think, okay, they've got this.
Yeah, right to the day he
It's just
sails,
like,
you're still thinking, oh, what's going to go wrong?
Even beyond sailing, I was like, he's just going to turn over and kill everybody again.
People won't help them to come and work for him. They'll come and work for one day, okay, maybe two, and then Paragon will have a bad day. Now they've got no one helping them. They're like, okay, start again. We need more people. And that wonderful sense that bound them together, where I'm not giving up on this.
Yeah.
And Paragon, today, you might think you're giving up, like anybody who suffers with mental health issues, having people around you that go, it's okay, you're having a bad day. Tomorrow, we're going to start again, and we're going to just keep going, and it will be okay.
Yep.
And it takes Paragon a long time to trust that I can have a bad day, and they will still love me tomorrow.
Yeah, and they're not going to turn on me and do something horrible or just leave me or abandon me or whatever. Yeah.
And all three really support each other through that, because Brashen's going through withdrawal. You know, Althea is still fighting with her family because she's not behaving how a woman should. They're all really helping each other stay on track. And it's wonderful to read.
Yeah.
Because they do fall over and they do hurt each other's feelings. And it's not all sweetness and roses. You know, they have massive rows and they throw things at each other and it gets nasty.
Yeah. But they stick together.
Ultimately, they still care about each other. And we're still here tomorrow and we're still going to do the thing. And as someone who suffers quite profoundly with depression, people ask me, how can you read this series over and over? It's so depressing. I'm like, yeah, but they all get up. You know, Fitz gets beaten down, he still gets up. You know, Paragon has a moment, he still turns up tomorrow. And when you're in the dark place, knowing that tomorrow might be better is a really powerful thing.
I mean, some of the most powerful connections like that in the whole larger series are, to me, Fitz and the Fool and Fitz and Night Eyes. Like, especially Fitz and Night Eyes. Like Fitz and Night Eyes, that is a connection that, like, Fitz can't trust anybody, but Fitz and Night Eyes is a connection that is just like, it just exists. It's not like nobody's going to turn their back on anybody. Like it's almost unavoidable kind of connection. Yeah, and really Fitz and the Fool becomes like that essentially as well, so that, you know, you've always got that.
Yeah.
Even if everything else goes completely horrible.
Profound trust that this person has my back. Even if I have been the complete and utter scumbag to them, they're still going to actually have my back. And that might not look nice from my perspective, but they're doing what's right for me.
Yeah.
And
Thornall says Rob knows how to hit low. The cute little dog in the first chapter.
Nobody's expecting that in chapter 2.
No.
Nobody.
No. Nosy and Smithy were... Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that right in the first chapters of Liveships, she kills Ephron. You know, you've been built up about this big, strong, brash man who's just feeling a bit under the weather. You expect that they're sailing home to pick up their captain. Like, he's fine. He's had a season off. He's fine. No, he's going to die.
He's dead.
Slowly and painfully and in the most awful way possible, where his mental health is declining. His wife and his daughter are managing to talk him into things that he wouldn't have done ordinarily.
Yeah.
And that's awful to anybody who's got an aging parent or who has watched their parents go through something similar. That's a stab in the heart to
Yeah,
watch that over those scenes.
my dad basically died of
Oh,
dementia,
yeah,
and pretty much all of his life he was the most capable person you can imagine, like
yeah.
taking apart and repairing motorcycles and running his own business, very successful, and all like
And they know
sailing
they've
and
diminished.
yeah. Well,
And
actually,
that's heartbreaking.
that was the most admirable thing about the whole situation to me was my dad knew it and he dealt with it so smoothly and consciously.
Nice.
And he
That's
was
the man to be
less.
proud of.
He was amazing. He was less disturbed by what was going on than everybody around him was. He was
That's kind
he
of a
was
mark,
pretty
though,
cool.
of how much of a man he was in their lives, that everybody's so heartbroken.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's admirable.
Yeah.
There's really no other word for that. It's admirable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And Hob knows how to really dig into those emotions of everybody around it who's watching it and going,
Yeah.
oh, this is so awful because, this larger than life person and this larger than life person who has actually accepted what's happening, having to watch everybody else grieving for a person they've already let go of. And there's a strange sort of peace that can come from it. And there's a lot of catharsis. That's something Hob is so incredible for. It's always hard to cry or grieve or just feel things for yourself because you're like, oh, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
I'm just overreacting. I'm being silly. But to sit down and give yourself and say, I'm reading a book. I'm just reading a book. And you can sob, you can cry, you can really weep and let those feelings out because you know what that feels like and you know how hard it is. And that is how it feels. She always nails these things so perfectly that you can get those moments of catharsis that can help you through your own, past and history and trauma or things that are upcoming. Or sometimes it's a bit on the nose. I particularly feel for Philip Chase, who has had a grieving situation happen when a character died, and it was very similar. And I was like, oh, that's timing it a little bit close.
Yeah.
That might be tough.
Yeah.
But it because it's so real. She nails it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still have to pay the bills. You still got to figure out what's for dinner. While you've got this incredibly tragic thing happening, you've still got to weed the garden. Or
yesterday I finished Fool's Errand, so what tragic thing I read about, and I don't really cry at books or movies or
honey,
anything.
No, if you can go through Fool's Errand and not cry, you are not human.
I got very choked up. I can say I got very choked up. Absolutely.
Seriously.
But hard. Very hard. Listen,
but
it is
those little moments.
It is almost midnight over here.
Oh, I should let you go.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been lovely talking. I could do it for hours and hours, but then it would be 2 or 3 in the morning and I would be very tired tomorrow.
You would. Yeah. But it is lovely having someone who knows what they want to talk about. Because I always find if I'm left to my own devices, I can go off on tangents all day. So for someone to go, I want to talk about this, I'm like, okay, I can talk about that.
I didn't have any doubt that I could come up with anything from the realm of the Elderlings and you could talk about it as long as we want. So
absolutely.
I wasn't in any fear of that at all. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Thank you for Evie. Thank you for Madison, who was going to join us. I hope everybody in Madison's family is doing well now. And thank you, Evie, the ultimate fount of Realm of the Elderlings Hob knowledge.
Yeah,
it's been a real pleasure.
Joy.
And I'm already done with one book in 20 Man. When I finish the other 2, we will do this again and we'll get the band back together with all 4 of us.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is going to be an exciting discussion.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it already.
All righty. Well, go
see you later.
Get some sleep, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.